I think I can honestly say this has ruined my life.
You are lonely in the wind. You are angry in the dark. I know you want this pain to end. When I look deep inside your heart, please don't sacrifice the soul within. We can breathe this moment by. As a silent tear runs down your face, you will find the strength to cry. You are lovely, you are.
This is medical problems.
You are lovely, you are, you are, you are. When you're hungry to be heard, when you're dying to be seen, I look deep within your eyes and notice where you've been. You are lovely, you are.
People argue, what is an eating disorder? What does that mean? Some people think of it as a thinking disorder.
My eating disorder was there for a reason, and I wasn't just trying to kill myself. I must have been feeling so terrible inside that I was willing to go to such extreme measures in order to feel okay.
I felt it was more important to make my parents proud or to have the facade of a successful, smart, good Jewish girl than to take care of myself.
And she said, well, I broke my fast on cereal, but they didn't have any skim milk or fat-free milk, so I had Cheerios without milk.
Having the team, as we call them, set up between the nutritionist, psychologist, the school, my parents, my family, my friends was amazing.
It is so important that you model positive body image for your daughter.
This is miserable. This is not sleeping. This is racing thoughts in your head all the time. This is medical problems that I work in a nursing home. I'm on more medication than my 90-year-old patient.
So many people now have eating disorders. It's the third most common and chronic illness in women in America.
I was 13 years old. I saw some girls in my class dieting very extremely. I noticed their knuckles popping out of their hands, and I just was jealous. I thought that was very beautiful. I thought that was my ideal. I started restricting then. I started eating very little, if not nothing.
I was hungry, but I felt like if I felt that pain, that meant that I was getting empty. And getting empty meant that I was going to lose weight, and losing weight meant that I was going to be pretty. I would look in the mirror and I would see an ugly, horrible, monster. That's what would stare back at me.
With the anorexic, whose weight is 72 pounds, right? And she will say, when I can go down to 70 pounds, I'll really be happy. And with every ounce that she loses, she may get a rush. And it may be that the weight loss triggers this pleasure center, just the way a drug does in the addict.
In about 7th grade, I stopped eating anything fattening and lost 20 pounds. You know, the more people told me, you look great, the more I was like, wait, did I look fat before? Maybe I look fat now. And people are just encouraging me to lose more weight. Maybe I should lose more weight.
The eating disordered thought disorder in their head really says, you're the best girl if you're the skinniest girl, even if it means you have to go to the hospital. You know, anorexics will say the best anorexic is a dead anorexic. And yet people don't get how serious this is.
I had been in a situation where I needed to be focusing and I couldn't, so I decided to leave the situation and go home so I could binge. And that's what I did. I ran home so quickly, and just like on the way, got a ton of food, eating it in the cab on my way home, and got home and went to purge. And I always purged with a toothbrush. I thought it was dirty to throw up with your hands, with your fingers. So I used a toothbrush, and I was in such a anxious state of mind. It was like so powerful. I needed to do this so badly, or else I would die. There was no other possible way. So I was just trying to gag really quickly, and I lost grip of the toothbrush, and I swallowed it. I was in the hospital for a few days, and when I left the hospital, the first thing I remember doing is going to binge and throwing up with a toothbrush.
Once I figured out how great it was, I was purging at least 5-10 times a day. It became something that I relied on, not necessarily a desperation thing. I kept it in the back of my head. Well, if I eat too much here, I always do have that option.
When it comes to binge eating, there's a lot of shame. I never like to eat in front of people.
I would, pick up like chips and ice cream and other very rich carbohydrate-y, sugary, fatty snacks. And that was sort of like, in a way, like a drug for me. And I would want to get my fix, and I would binge on it, usually in secret at home.
When I really think about it, I don't know that I was hungry for attention or hungry for food. I knew at some point that it wasn't food anymore, because I ate as much as I possibly could until I didn't have to force myself to throw up. It just happened because I physically made myself sick.
My eating disorder is both anorexic and bulimic. I started roughly at the age of 12, and pretty much up until now, and I'm 26.
It was very painful. Throwing up, taking these pills, it was something that I needed to convince myself and really force myself to do almost each and every time.
What people don't realize is it's something that can lead to heart attacks and cardiac arrhythmias and severe electrolyte imbalances.
Her reproductive abilities are being compromised, and often they return with refeeding, but they don't always.
When I lost my period, I thought that I had climbed Mount Everest. I thought that I had accomplished, succeeded, because I lost my period and I was able to say that I was in control of my body. Maybe now, maybe people will notice me. Maybe they won't know that I lost my period, but I'm so skinny, I guess people will start paying attention to me.
I never stopped menstruating, although when I was 21 I did have a miscarriage, and I'm sure that it's just because my body couldn't handle being pregnant.
With sustained malnutrition, you lose gray matter, so you're impairing your mind's ability to function.
Because of the hiatal hernia, because of the acid reflux, because of the teeth, because I have basically chronic swollen glands from the bulimia, where when I get sick, my glands get so big that it's hard even to move my neck. The eating disorder is always a part of me. I never forget that that's where I've been.
The eating disorder is a way to destroy my body, and until I come to terms with the fact that I'm stuck having one, I'm never going to be able to stop hurting it.
Okay. I can sit in the chair over there. How tall are you?
5'2", usually, sometimes 5'1" and 3/4.
5'1".
Great. I gained weight, I shrunk.
103.
I've been inpatient, I've been in day program, I've been in intensive outpatient.
And what symptoms were you having from low blood pressure?
Really, really dizzy, a lot of pain and pressure in my chest, especially when I stood up. I was falling, I couldn't feel my arms and legs, I blacked out a few times. It's really only been since December of last year when I was hospitalized that anyone knew.
So then you take Protonics, you take Pepsid, you take Allegra, Cymbalta, Effexor, Topamax, Miralax, that's the laxative.
Well, no, that's what I'm prescribed. When I want to purge, I take Dopalax and X-Lax and Maxcitrate.
No. Rosewood, albuterol, Clonopin.
Also the risk of someone fainting and then hitting their head on something, or getting in a car accident, and so it's very serious.
I checked myself into a hospital because I realized that there was something very wrong. And when I was in the hospital, I tried to commit suicide. At that point, I felt so alone. Here I was like so powerful, and I thought I could do everything, and I had nobody. I had blew up all relationships with everybody. I didn't talk to my family. My ex-husband, I ended up by divorce in a very nasty way. I felt like everybody hated me.
It becomes a very secretive life, and ultimately a pretty lonely life. You're in this private relationship with this tyrant in your head.
You take a certain personality type. Usually it's the perfectionist, kind of the type A girl, the girl who's the people pleaser, who then goes through a trauma. The trauma might be a separation of the parents. The trauma might be a loss of a grandparent. The trauma might be going away from home for the first time. And so with the outside forces of the trauma, the internal perfectionist personality, she's a petri dish for an eating disorder.
I wanted to control everything, and I wanted to be outside for everything to look good, because I knew inside the home, inside me, there was such a tangle and so much negativity and confusion. And this was one way that I thought it was going to be ordered.
There is no one thing that's going to give somebody an eating disorder. There's no one thing that's going to take it away. The way I think about eating disorders, it's really a funnel, that it's kind of an endpoint.
Eating disorder is a coping mechanism. It's something people turn to, whether they're depressed or anxious or unhappy, or there's a lot of tension in a family and you don't know how to deal with it.
I think I have an eating disorder because of a lot of dysfunction and trauma that was going on in my life. It was something to focus on. It was it became something that people noticed, and so I kept doing it.
They develop eating disorders when there's something that's really weighing on their heart and their soul, and they can't think about, they can't live with, they can't express, they have no one to talk to about it.
But the sexual abuse, I think, is what started it, the bulimia at least. I started because I felt very dirty and uncomfortable inside, and I didn't know anything about losing weight. It was not about that. I showered often. I just needed to purge everything that was in me. And that feeling, the purging, was that relief that I just need, and it was like an instant gratification.
There was nobody listening to me. There was nobody believing me, and there was nobody seeing how much pain I was in.
There's also a very wide range. Some of the families are really healthy, you know, but the eating disorder is a vice. It's really like a drug addiction, so that if you don't catch it in time, it has a life of its own.
I was miserable and I was sad. I felt like I didn't have friends, and I felt like I was ugly and that I wasn't accepted. And I really felt like all I needed to do was go on a diet, whatever that meant, and then I'd be pretty, and then I'd be accepted.
Maybe if I could get more people to like me, that would eventually somehow make me like myself.
One day, I was sitting in school, and I started to cough up blood. And my friend basically dragged me out of class, dragged me downstairs to the payphones, because this was long before cell phones existed, and she called the doctor from the payphone. And I sat down on the floor, and I looked up at her, and I started to cry. And I said, oh my gosh, I have no control. I have lost control. The doctor called my father, you called the doctor. I am not in control at all. Everybody has to start making decisions for me, because I am just a little girl sitting on the floor, feeling horrible, being weak. I thought that the bulimia was putting me in control, but it was so taking me out of control. I completely lost control. Completely lost myself in it.
The ideal Jewish concept of beauty is expressed by Shlomo HaMelech, by King Solomon, in Eshes Chayil, Sheker HaChen veHevel HaYofi, that external beauty is false, and that the true beauty is Isha Yiras Hashem, a woman who has reverence for Hashem, that is praiseworthy. Now, of course, we live in a culture where this idea has come pretty much under attack and under challenge.
Teenage girls and body image becomes a work in progress depending on what the outside world is like. They are much more aware of what they think the world wants to see, and it has affected the yeshiva world heavily.
I do have this idea that I would like to be skinnier because I don't want to be borderline unhealthy, and I don't want to feel uncomfortable with myself in clothing, or feel uncomfortable when I'm in the dressing room trying things on with sizes, whatever. I want to stay where I am. I don't really want to, I'm more watching that I don't become too, I don't know, eat too much or whatever it is, than trying not to eat. But it's funny, I don't really know why.
The Orthodox world hasn't created this, you know? They're just being victimized by it like everybody else.
It's also like with the world, but it's what's in your head. They make you feel like, this is what you should look like, and if you can't look like that, then just keep trying,
About 20 years ago, several of us started talking about the fact that we were seeing a lot of eating disorders in our Jewish friends or families, and some of the research really would suggest a seriously inflated percentage of eating disorders in Jewish families and in Jewish culture.
Among the Orthodox community, the religious Orthodox community, it's a very low percentage rate of referral in our clinics. So our interpretation is not that they have less eating disorder, but it may reflect help-seeking characteristics. Maybe they are more aware of coming to seek treatment because of the stigma. Maybe the parents are concerned that it will destroy the shidduch.
Men don't understand, but their moms sure do if we're talking about shidduchim, and they're the ones who check out the girls.
In the old country, 100 years ago, a slim woman with an ideal figure would never have gotten a shidduch because she was assumed to be sick.
Now, of course, there are many boys whose one of their first questions is, is the girl thin? Or how thin is she? What size is she?
I always worry, if that's so important to you, what's going to happen when she has several children?
Many parents encourage their daughters to diet because they say, if my daughter doesn't diet, she's not going to get a good shidduch. So of course I'm encouraging her to diet. I go to the gym with her. I even got her various kinds of pills. I mean, a parent doesn't realize that they're doing something that's ultimately damaging.
We've come to believe that I can have, or my child can have, the perfect life if I just ask the right questions, find the right match, etc. And that is plainly and simply a psychosis. Many people in the Orthodox community, and it's less a function of the religion than it is of the sociology of the religion, would like to deny all sorts of problems.
I ran a tour in Israel, and I remember on the tour one time, there was a girl, amazing girl, she was growing her Judaism, she was davening, and I was approached by one of the counselors and basically letting me know that after meals, she would basically be in the bathroom, she'd be in there a long time, people could hear retching noises, and we sat her down and we talked to her about it, and she admitted that she had an issue, and I said, we have to call your parents, and she was okay with that. We called the mom, and I would say the scariest part of the story was that the mother was livid with me. The fact that we could make those kind of accusations about her daughter, and it wasn't her daughter, and it couldn't be her daughter. And I think at that point I realized what kind of pressure some of these teens are under, that they feel even if they do come forward, people won't believe them, or people will be disappointed in them. And I think that that's what they're scared of.
Growing up in a big family, you almost feel guilty having needs. You want to be that child that your parents, it was a breeze for them to take care of you, and amongst many. I remember not wanting to ask my mother for a new pair of shoes when mine were torn, and I was really proud that I could wear torn shoes because she has so much on her head right now, and she's taking care of so many other children. So I'm really proud of myself that I can just continue wearing these torn shoes until someone notices.
These rabbis that I would hear stories about, like the Michal Mizlachov or the Baal Shem Tov, those stories were the source of inspiration to my father, to my mother, and I wanted to be an inspiration to them too. And I wanted to be perfect. I would hear those stories and I wanted to be the same way, like not have any needs.
Superwoman ideal in the Jewish community is every bit as strenuous as it is in the dominant American community, but even worse because, you have to be a perfect housewife, you have to cook perfectly, everything has to be so perfect and just so, and you have to be a size 0 or a size 2. There is no other culture that I know of where food plays such a central role.
Throughout my eating disorder, Shabbos was the hardest day, always, still to this day. It's kind of a day where, whether you're hungry or not, you're going to sit down and eat a big meal. And a big argument when I was younger was that I used to play basketball on Shabbos. And the reason was because I just couldn't sit with all that food. And everyone just thought it was such a bad idea, and it was like, it just wasn't right. It was embarrassing to the family that everybody would see this. But it was really just my way of getting away from it for a little bit, just to be okay.
It's so terrifying because this is a very, very serious medical and psychological disease. This is not just, quote, a bunch of rich Jewish girls sticking their fingers down their throat to make themselves sick because they're vain.
I remember feeling really alone, and I mean, I was horribly depressed. I just wanted to get out.
You should really be concerned if your daughter changing her mood, become depressed, become isolated.
I wasn't living. At that point, it was more towards the anorexic end, so I just wasn't eating. And I was really, really just not taking care of myself, and I was over-exercising, and I was obsessed with things, and I was crying and depressed and unhappy, and my mom noticed that.
And if you happen to have an anorexic girl or a bulimic girl in your class, it becomes the class's obsession with calories.
In high school, I guess in the bathrooms, girls would talk about things they've heard and what they can do and different diets. And I've heard that you can binge and purge, that you can throw up and not gain weight from the food that you're eating.
Because I was on diet pills for so long and from such a young age, I realized at one point that I didn't understand or know my personality anymore. I always considered myself a very bubbly person, energetic. I had a very great natural high, and it wasn't so natural. On one hand, you feel like parents like to think the worst things. They get very nervous, and whatever the worst scenario is, that's what they're thinking. They're always concerned, they're up late worrying. But when it's right in front of them, I don't think that when it comes to eating disorders or things, they're not looking for it.
Parents should start getting concerned if they see that their child is losing weight, especially if the child doesn't need to lose weight, or if the child is overweight and they're losing weight and they're losing it at a very quick rate, but they're not gaining weight either at a time that it's important that they do gain weight. It's at the dinner table, they're not eating that much, or they see that they're restricting a lot of food. If they're over-exercising, if there's some suspicion of purging, marks on the back of their hand from their teeth when they stick their hands down their mouth, if they see that they're using lots of laxatives.
Another thing that you see a lot, it's like an early warning sign often of an eating disorder, is a woman who likes to prepare a lot of food and feed other people, but she doesn't eat herself.
I remember in high school I used to bake and cook and just bring everything to school, and like I wouldn't eat it and I would watch all my friends eat it, and I would like get so much, it would feel so good. I was just like, yeah, that's right, you're eating it, you're all getting fat, and I have self-control. And I remember talking to girls in the hospital and they were saying like, oh, I did that too, and I thought I was crazy. I'm like, who does this?
I think I can honestly say this has ruined my life. This is not the way to go. This is miserable, and you don't, this is not something you flirt with.
The first time I start with a purge, I'm on a roll or a binge. When I start restricting, I just want to continue for another week, another day, another hour, until I faint and I end up in the hospital. And then I come out and I, start the cycle again. And that's not control of my life. That's being lost and sold to an addiction.
You're not entirely going to be able to just convince them to give up these behaviors. They're not going to be fully amenable to just a rational discussion.
It took time, it took energy, it took effort, it took a lot of patience on a lot of people's parts, mine included. I had to hit rock bottom. I had to feel that sense of like, I'm out of control.
It came out again when I got engaged, because that transitional time, and this was the way I dealt with it, and then I broke down. And then I said to my husband, I need a psychologist and I need a nutritionist. In other words, I reached safety, And then I broke down.
We've definitely seen a change in the attitude of the community towards mental health. There's certainly an awakening. I don't think you can open up a Jewish magazine today without seeing some article on some mental health issues. So there are a few members of a team that's involved in the treatment of eating disorders. The first is the medical piece.
My dad basically was telling me that another family member was going to come pick me up, take me to the hospital where I was going to be meeting the doctor, and that they were going to do a slew of tests.
The medical piece is to deal with issues like electrolytes, potassium, the stability in terms of the weight, making sure that they're not in danger. The second piece is the nutritionist.
What you think you needed at a snack, and then I'll just go through and double check that I think that these are appropriate.
The nutritionist will work with the patient, and kind of finding their comfort level in terms of the foods.
He started to help me figure out foods that I could eat that maybe I wouldn't make myself throw up.
And then I'd say the heavy lifting is really the therapist. And the therapist's job is going to be to get to the underlying issues.
The psychologist talked to me about things to do instead of throwing up when I was frustrated, instead of throwing up when I did poorly on a test, instead of throwing up when I fought with somebody. What else could I do? What was something else that I could do?
You shouldn't have to be in therapy in order to feel like what is right for me within the context of the general values of the community. Let's really talk about it. What can we do? How can you talk to your parent about the fact that this is making you really unhappy? What are the alternatives that might be acceptable? Paying attention to the inner voice.
My Judaism really helped me gain control back. Judaism to me was structure, and for me to be able to look at that as structure as opposed to my food as structure was actually really helpful. And to be able to know that I could, as lonely as I was, I could daven, and there was somebody that was listening. There was something very special about that. It actually helped me get better. I actually held on to that very, very tight.
I learned how to purge by purging out my words. It's about me being heard, my inner voice coming out, me sort of having something to say and people listening.
But one thing for sure, eating disorders are born at home, in bathrooms and in kitchens. And parents actually have more access to knowing about them than they are aware of.
This is also a time I'm a teenager, and my body is starting to change. I'm starting to develop. There are things happening to my body I don't know anything about because my parents think that by osmosis I'm going to know because I'm the third daughter.
It's really up to parents. It's their job to educate children, both young boys and young girls, about the changes that are happening with their body and the things that they can expect and the feelings that accompany these changes, and that these feelings are normal.
It takes about between 3 to 4 years that they eat more than usual. They need to eat more, so they're surrounding the refrigerator all day long. And when parents are anxious and they make all kinds of bad comments towards this behavior, not taking it as a part of the sexual development. They needed this fat to grow, and they needed this fat to reach their sexual maturity. It started approximately 1 year before the period, and then 2 years after they get their period. And when they reach their peak of maturation, they don't gain weight necessarily.
I was sitting once in a restaurant in Israel, and a parent literally took the fork away from her child, her daughter that was studying in seminary, and she said, "Stop eating. You gain so much weight here."
If you don't touch it and you let it, be as it is, you can structure the meal, you can do all kinds of things behind the curtains, but don't relate to it in an anxious way and don't make any bad comments.
That is not the way to get your kid to go on a diet. Stop eating? No, not stop eating. Here's a healthy choice.
You know, it's tough for a teen in this world because they may not be great at school, they may have family issues at home, they may have issues with their friends fitting in. And it's important for them to realize that, look, you may not be great at school, but there's so many things in this world that you can do, so many things you can contribute. You need the confidence to go out there and say, wow, I can really change things. I could be somebody.
One thing that we do know is that eating meals as a family is very, very helpful.
We didn't eat dinner together as a family.
Find one more time the whole family can sit down and talk, not about food, but about feelings. How can parents really keep in the front of their consciousness, you know, I want to be a good listener.
The things that a mother can do to prevent her daughter from developing an eating disorder is certainly practice self-acceptance, body acceptance. Be in the body you have. Never say bad things about your body in front of your daughter. I should go on a diet, I'm fat, do I look fat in this? All you're doing is passing down at the most intimate level a message of body loathing, body critique, proclivity towards dieting, all the kinds of thinking that could make your daughter vulnerable to an eating disorder.
Don't look at yourself in the mirror and obsess about every single thing, because the 7-year-old behind you is going to come up and do the exact same thing.
I guess my message to parents would be, don't ignore the signs. Don't ignore the signs, because if you can catch it in an early stage, you will save your child from a lot of pain and suffering.
I think that parents and educators need to make girls aware of the dangers of eating disorders so they don't flirt with it.
You are angry in the dark.
Anytime a parent thinks like, oh, okay, fine, she'll get over it, or I'll just, you know, buy her ice cream and like it'll all be better. But, you know, to actually listen to your child when they say they're fat, when they say, I want to lose weight, because it's not really about losing weight, it's about needing attention, it's about needing something more.
Shattering that ideal image. It's all right to have a body, a beautiful body, and it's all right to have a different body, and there's no perfect ideal. I think it's also important to let girls know that it's okay to have feelings, and those feelings don't have to be perfect all the time.
It's great for dads to come downstairs in the morning and say how much they love their wife or how beautiful their wife is, not with makeup on, not because she looks like she's on the cover of Vogue, but because she's who she is. She's the woman you love. Girls really need to hear it from their dads too, because their dads are their first men.
I'm okay with who I am, so why not be me? There are plenty of other people who look like what the media wants them to look like. There aren't enough of me, so why don't I be me?
When you're hungry to be heard, when you're dying to be seen, I look deep within your eyes and notice where you've been. Please don't pay the price of 100 sins that were never yours to own.
Trying to be in recovery is where I am right now with my eating disorder.
You won't fight this one alone. You are lovely.
There's hope because eating disorders are a treatable disorder. There's no hope if you ignore it.
An eating disorder is of sufficient seriousness that it should rate right along with diabetes as a serious health problem. And I think that any parent who wants to treat the child's diabetes on his own is a fool. Parents should be parents and not therapists.
If one has bitachon and believes that God will help those that help themselves, which we ultimately did, things will turn out okay.
I think that it's important that everybody out there knows that there are people that have not just gone through it, but have survived it. I survived this. Unfortunately, I've been at funerals of people who have not survived this. And I am a survivor. And because I am a survivor, I'm the voice of myself, of the people who unfortunately did not make it, and of the people who are not willing to say that they're survivors too.
We will rise from this like a fire in the rain, and I will love you enough to protect you from the pain. Every breath you take is wonderful.
I'm learning to recognize it, and I'm learning that I don't want to be doing this anymore, and that helps.
Just because someone's struggling with an eating disorder, by no means is their life over. They have a difficult road ahead of them, but it's definitely a road. There's a path for them to take out of this.
You are lovely, you are, you are, you are. You are lonely in the wind, you are angry in the dark. I know you want this pain to end when I look deep inside your heart. Please don't sacrifice the soul within. We can breathe this moment by as a silent tear runs down your face. You will find the strength to cry. You are lovely, you are, you are, you are, you are lovely, you are, you are, you are. When you're hungry to be heard, when you're dying to be seen, I look deep within your eyes and know